Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky responded guardedly on Sunday to a proposal from Russian President Vladimir Putin of rapid, direct talks aimed at ending the war. Putin made his proposal in a televised statement from the Kremlin on Saturday, more than 3 years after he sent Russian forces to invade the smaller neighbor. U.S. President Donald Trump, who says he wants to be remembered as a peacemaker, called Putin's proposal, quote, a potentially great day for Russia and Ukraine. Trump broke from his predecessor, Joe Biden, in dropping a demand for an immediate Russian withdrawal from Ukraine, and instead pressed both sides to agree to a temporary ceasefire.
I want a ceasefire
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
Zelensky and other Western allies resisted this, saying a pause in fighting would allow Russia to redeploy forces for further attacks. But they relented in the face of U.S. pressure and accepted the idea of a temporary truce. The Ukrainian leader said it was, quote, a positive sign that the Russians have finally begun to consider ending the war, but that, quote, the very first step in truly ending the war is a ceasefire. He said, quote, we expect Russia to confirm a ceasefire, full, lasting, and reliable, starting tomorrow, May 12th, and Ukraine is ready to meet.
It will focus on how to build and guarantee real and lasting security. Key points, 30-day ceasefire backed with sanctions.
On Saturday, Zelensky and other EU leaders announced their support for a 30-day ceasefire as a first step.
There is this ceasefire for 30 days proposal that is very clearly now on the table.
It's unconditional ceasefire for 30 days.
Putin, however, suggested that any ceasefire was a matter for negotiations, he said could take place in Istanbul later this week. The Kremlin chief said he did not rule out both sides agreeing in Turkey on, quote, some new truces, a new ceasefire, but one that would be the first step toward a, quote, sustainable peace. Putin said Russia had proposed several ceasefires, including a moratorium on striking energy facilities, an Easter truce, and most recently a 72-hour truce during celebrations marking 80 years since Soviet victory in World War II. None of those were agreed between the two sides, and each accused the other of continuing to attack in force during the supposed truce period.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Sunday he would sign an order to cut prescription prices to the levels paid by other nations. He put that at 30 to 80% less than they are right now. In a post on Truth Social, the president said he would sign the order Monday morning. He said he would institute a so-called most favored nations policy, where the U.S. will pay the same price as the country with the lowest cost for any given drug. It wasn't immediately clear how the reductions would happen in practice, but drug costs are a hot-button issue in the U.S., which often pays close to triple the prices seen in other developed nations. In total, the country spends over $400 billion per year on medicines. Trump tried to tackle the issue in his first term with a proposed international reference pricing system, but saw the idea blocked by the courts. Drug industry insiders told Reuters they'd been expecting a new effort, probably with an order focused on the Medicare health insurance program. Some prices had already been renegotiated under previous President Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. But drug makers expect the new order to be more far-reaching. A spokesperson for an industry body criticized the move, saying government price setting in any form is bad for American patients.
Contenders for South Korea's presidency kicked off their campaigns Monday. It is a race to determine the successor to former leader Yoon Suk-yeol, who was ousted after briefly declaring martial law and plunging the country into political crisis. Top of the agenda for any candidate is uniting a fractured country in the wake of Yoon's removal from office and trying to grow the economy under threat of Donald Trump's trade policies. The frontrunner is Lee Jae-myung of the Liberal Democratic Party. Lee lost to Yoon in the last election, but is now gaining strong support.
Inequality, polarization, and insurrection have driven our society into extreme division and conflict, to the point where a presidential candidate should wear a bulletproof vest at election campaigns.
Lee was wearing such a vest on Monday over threats to his safety. He also survived a knife attack last year and has ridden a wave of popular appeal after that incident, as well as standing up to martial law and contesting charges that threatened to disqualify him. Those trials on charges of bribery and others linked to a property scandal have been postponed until after the polls. His party's policy pledges include mending fractured ties with North Korea and forging stronger ties with Europe. Lee's rival is Kim Moon-soo of the right-wing People Power Party. He began his campaign at a Seoul market, eating Korean sausage soup with merchants there and promising to revive small businesses.
이곳에서 저는
Standing here at a public wholesale market, I truly feel I need to become the president of the markets, a president for people's livelihoods, a president for the economy. I think I should become a president who brings prosperity to South Korea.
돼야 되겠다. 그런 생각을 합니다.
Yoon backed Kim on Sunday to fight what he called the giant opposition party, but that's drawn criticism from PPP members who want Yoon kicked out of their party. If elected, Kim has proposed an immediate summit meeting with Trump to negotiate tariffs. Kim has also said he'd explore the possibility of South Korea developing nuclear arms by securing the right to reprocess nuclear fuel, a big step toward building atomic weapons.
Calm returned to India's border town markets Monday morning. Businesses slowly reopened as both India and Pakistan maintained a ceasefire following their fiercest fighting in nearly 3 decades. This shop owner told local media he still worries about potential missile strikes, but he's happy to see the market buzzing and he's started earning a living again. After 4 days of intense fighting, India and Pakistan agreed to a ceasefire Saturday under US pressure. The Indian Army said Sunday was the first peaceful night in recent days along the border. However, it also said it flagged up some initial ceasefire violations to Islamabad. In response, Pakistan said it was committed to the ceasefire and blamed India for the violations. For some, the fragile peace was also a time for mourning. In Indian-administered Kashmir, relatives on Sunday held a funeral for their loved one, a rifleman, Sunil Kumar, who was killed during cross-border shelling. Crowds in Lahore and in Islamabad on Sunday held pro-military rallies, praising the bravery of their soldiers. Tensions boiled over into conflict after India blamed Pakistan for a deadly terrorist attack in Indian Kashmir last month that killed 26 people. Both countries targeted each other's military installations with missiles and drones last week, and the combined death toll in recent skirmishes has reached nearly 70, according to official tallies. With the ceasefire holding, India said the military chiefs of both countries would discuss next steps Monday morning.
Wall Street stock futures surged, the dollar rallied and gold prices slumped on Monday as US and Chinese officials pledged to slash reciprocal tariffs. The move swept trade war fears out of global markets, at least for now. Following weekend talks in Geneva, a joint US-China statement on Monday said that both sides would drop trade levies. Futures tracking Wall Street's S&P 500 index were 2.6% higher, and contracts following the Nasdaq 100 index jumped 3.8%. In early European trading, Germany's DAX rose 1.5% to a record high, and the regional Stock 600 was also up, while safe haven spot gold dropped 3%. Arthur Brunner is a fixed income specialist at ICF Bank.
A reasonable movement of goods is possible again at the moment. The beneficiaries of this were semiconductors. For example, Infineon is the strongest stock on the DAX today. The automotive industry and also chemicals, especially BASF, which were up significantly today.
US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told reporters the two sides had agreed on a 90-day pause on measures and that tariffs would come down by over 100 percentage points to 10%. An easing in geopolitical tensions also boosted the mood as a fragile ceasefire held between India and Pakistan. Plus, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he was ready to meet Vladimir Putin in Turkey on Thursday. Apple is reportedly weighing price hikes for its upcoming fall iPhone lineup, but is keen to avoid linking any increases to US tariffs on imports from China, where most of its devices are assembled. That's according to the Wall Street Journal on Monday. The technology giant's shares were up 7% in pre-market trading. They tracked gains in the wider market after Washington and Beijing agreed to temporarily slash the reciprocal tariffs. But Chinese imports will still be subject to a 30% levy in the US. Apple is among the most prominent firms caught in the US-China trade tensions. The company did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment on the journal's report, which cited people familiar with the matter. Raising prices could help Apple cushion higher costs stemming from the tariffs that have hampered global supply chains and forced the company to shift more production to India. Analysts have for months speculated about a price increase from Apple, but warned that such a move could cost it market share. The cheapest iPhone 16 model was launched in the US with a sticker price of $799.